Why NXIVM branding shocked Allison Mack, True Crime Documentary. If you want more real true crime stories just like this one, make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment telling us which case you want us to cover next. Your support helps us bring more powerful, real-world stories to the channel. Allison Mack watched as another woman lay on the table, shaking, her eyes filled with fear. The smell of burning skin filled the small room. A metal tool, heated until it glowed, pressed into the woman's hip. She cried out in pain, but Allison, standing close, calmly asked her, "Why does it hurt so much? You're strong, you can take it." The woman looked at her with confusion and fear, because she truly seemed to believe what she was saying. She spoke as if the pain was a simple test, a step toward becoming better. Allison Mack, once a famous TV actress, truly did not understand why the slaves in NXIVM cried or begged for the branding to stop. She thought this made them weak. She told them the suffering was beautiful. She believed the mark was a symbol of loyalty. But what no one in the room knew at that moment was that the truth about NXIVM was already beginning to crack open. Someone had leaked information. Investigators were watching. Former members were speaking out. And the branding session happening that night would soon help bring the entire group down. Just as the tool was lifted from the woman's skin and the room filled with her sobs, someone outside the door whispered, "They're starting to ask questions." Allison turned quickly, her face tense. That was the moment things began to shift, even if she refused to see it. And what happened next would shock even the people who thought they knew how dark NXIVM was. The story of how Allison Mack reached that point did not start in a room filled with smoke and pain. It began many years earlier, long before she believed she was helping women grow by controlling their lives. Allison had been a child actress, then a teenage star on a hit TV show. Fame came early, and with fame came pressure. She wanted purpose. She wanted direction. She wanted someone to tell her she mattered.
That was when Keith Raniere, the leader of NXIVM, entered her life. He called himself a teacher, a thinker, someone who could change the world. He told Allison she was special. He said she had the power to help women become stronger. At first, the classes seemed harmless. People talked about goals, fears, confidence. But slowly, things shifted. Raniere made rules. He created secret levels inside the group. He said real growth required sacrifice, and Allison believed him. She became one of his most loyal followers. She helped bring other women in. She said she was giving them strength, but the truth was that Keith Raniere was gaining control over their lives one step at a time, and Allison was helping him, thinking she was doing something good. Then came the creation of the secret group inside NXIVM called DOS. Women in this group were told they were slaves and they had masters. They had to follow strict orders. They had to give personal secrets that could be used against them if they ever tried to leave. Allison was one of the highest-ranking masters. She believed she was helping women transform. But the branding changed everything. The women were told the mark was a symbol of unity. What they did not know was that the symbol was actually the initials of Keith Raniere and Allison Mack. It was carved into their skin forever. And while Allison stood over them, confused why they screamed in pain, a former member was quietly talking to investigators, sharing details that would soon explode into the public. As Allison wiped sweat from her forehead and prepared the next woman for branding, she did not know that her world was about to fall apart. She did not know that her name, once respected, would soon be tied to one of the most disturbing crimes in recent American history. And she did not know that someone very close to her was about to make a move that would change everything. The courtroom was silent as Allison Mack walked in, her hands cuffed and her head down. Cameras flashed, but she didn't look up. Outside, former NXIVM members whispered to reporters about what they had endured. For years, no one had dared speak publicly. Now the truth was finally coming out, and it was worse than anyone had imagined.
It all began years earlier, before the branding,
Before the strict rules, before the whispers of blackmail. Allison Mack, a rising star from the TV show Smallville, had been searching for purpose. Fame alone was not enough. She wanted to be part of something bigger. That desire made her vulnerable to Keith Raniere, the man who would later be called the leader of a cult. Raniere had a way of speaking that made people feel important. He told Allison she could change women's lives. He said she had the power to guide them, to help them grow. Allison believed him. Slowly, she became his right-hand person, recruiting other women into his inner circle. At first, it seemed like self-improvement classes, but the truth was far darker. Inside NXIVM, a secret program called DOS, or Dominus Obsequious Sororium, was created. It was described as a women's empowerment group, but in reality, it was a hierarchy where women were made slaves to a master. They had to follow strict rules, give compromising personal information, and submit to demands without question. Allison Mack became one of the top masters. She thought she was helping women find strength, but she was controlling them, just as Raniere had taught her. The branding was the moment the horror became undeniable. Women were asked to strip, lie down, and be burned with a hot iron. The symbol etched into their skin included Keith Raniere's initials and Allison's. Victims later testified that they were terrified, humiliated, and in extreme pain. Some tried to refuse, but the rules were clear. Obedience was mandatory, and failure had consequences. Allison's role was chilling. She supervised, encouraged, and sometimes even participated in the branding. Court documents show she did not question the suffering around her. Many former DOS members said she seemed genuinely confused why the women screamed or cried. She had been trained to see pain as a tool, a way to test loyalty and commitment. By 2018, investigators had gathered enough evidence to take down NXIVM. Former members began cooperating with authorities. They shared photos, messages, and detailed accounts of what had happened behind closed doors. The media picked up the story, exposing the shocking reality. Women had been manipulated, exploited, and branded under the guise of empowerment. The night Allison Mack was arrested, the same fears and confusion she had once instilled in others now followed her. She faced charges for sex trafficking, forced labor, and conspiracy. Raniere was already in custody, convicted of similar crimes. The empire they had built, which had seemed so untouchable, was crumbling. As Allison sat in the courtroom, watching women she had once called slaves testify, a deep silence filled the room. For the first time, she could see the full impact of her actions. The fear, the pain, the betrayal, it was all real, all documented, all undeniable. But even as the trial unfolded, questions lingered. Could Allison truly understand the damage she had caused? Did she feel remorse? Or was she still trapped in the same mindset that led her to participate in DOS? And what other secrets about NXIVM had yet to be revealed? The day Allison Mack was sentenced felt like the end of a long, dark nightmare for the women of NXIVM. Courtrooms were packed with former members who had endured manipulation, fear, and branding. Cameras caught every moment, but for the survivors, it wasn't about the media, it was about justice. Allison Mack, once a household name, now faced the full weight of the law. By the time she stood in front of the judge, the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors laid out dozens of testimonies from women who described the abuse they suffered. They spoke about being blackmailed, controlled, and coerced into sexual relationships. They recounted the pain of being branded, the humiliation of strict rules, and the fear that anything they did could be used against them. Allison Mack's name came up again and again, linked directly to Das, the secret society where women were enslaved to their masters. Allison had pleaded guilty to racketeering conspiracy, including forced labor and sex trafficking. She admitted she had helped recruit women, collected their compromising information, and assisted in enforcing Raniere's strict rules. But during parts of the trial, she still seemed to struggle with understanding the depth of the suffering around her. Survivors said she sometimes seemed confused about why the women felt pain and fear so deeply, echoing what she had believed years earlier.
The branding became a central point in the trial. Victims described being burned with a cauterizing iron in rooms with other women present, their screams filling the air. Allison's initials, alongside Raniere's, were part of the symbol etched permanently into their skin. Some women said they had hoped to escape but felt trapped by the secrets Allison had forced them to give. The images and testimonies shocked the public, exposing the cruel manipulation at the heart of NXIVM. When the judge finally spoke, the courtroom was tense. Allison Mack was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release. It was a lighter sentence than many expected, partly because she had cooperated with authorities and admitted her role. Still, the sentence marked the official end of her participation in one of America's most infamous cults. Raniere, her mentor and the mastermind, received 120 years in prison, the maximum penalty. Outside the courthouse, survivors spoke openly about their experiences. They talked about reclaiming their lives, seeking therapy, and supporting one another. Many said the branding, the secrecy, and the manipulation had left lasting scars, but they were finally free from the control that Allison Mack and Keith Raniere had once held over them.
As for Allison, she would spend years reflecting on her role. Court documents and interviews suggest she struggled to fully grasp the extent of the pain she had helped cause. Her name, once associated with fame and talent, would forever be tied to NXIVM and the Das scandal. The world had witnessed how easily someone could be drawn into a cult, convinced they were doing the right thing, and blind to the suffering around them. The story of NXIVM, Allison Mack, and the women who survived serves as a chilling reminder. Power can corrupt, and manipulation can hide behind the guise of self-improvement. The scars, both visible and invisible, remain with the survivors, a permanent record of a dark chapter in modern American history. For Allison Mack, the question lingers: did she ever truly understand the pain of the women she branded, or was she always trapped in the same mindset that allowed it to happen? The answer may never be fully known. And the women who survived, they finally had their freedom, and their story, a warning for the world, would never be forgotten.